What if everything you've been told about surviving a narcissist is wrong? What if the strongest people often stay trapped the longest, while one unexpected type of person quietly walks away and never looks back? By the end of this video, you'll understand why intelligence isn't enough, kindness isn't enough, and even confidence isn't enough to survive narcissistic abuse. Only one psychological shift changes everything, and almost nobody sees it coming. If you've ever wondered why someone can leave a narcissist physically, but still feel emotionally chained for years, stay with me. What you're about to hear may explain experiences you've never been able to put into words. And if this message resonates with you, subscribe and leave a comment with the word free. It tells your mind and everyone reading that you're choosing freedom over manipulation, clarity over confusion, and peace over chaos. Most people assume the only way to survive a narcissist is to become stronger, tougher, louder, or more intimidating. They imagine that survival belongs to the person who can argue better, expose every lie, or refuse to back down. But narcissistic relationships do not operate according to ordinary rules of conflict. A narcissist often sees confrontation as engagement, and engagement is exactly what keeps the unhealthy dynamic alive. Every attempt to prove your point, defend your character, or force accountability can become another opportunity for manipulation. This is why many highly intelligent, successful, and emotionally resilient people still find themselves trapped for years. Their strength becomes redirected into endless attempts to fix something that was never within their control. The person who truly survives is not necessarily the strongest in appearance, but the one who recognizes that survival begins with changing the rules of the game. Instead of trying to win every disagreement, they stop treating the narcissist as someone who can be persuaded through logic or empathy. They understand that constantly seeking fairness from someone who benefits from unfairness only deepens emotional exhaustion. Their focus shifts away from changing another person and toward protecting their own emotional well-being. They begin asking different questions. Rather than wondering, how do I make them understand me? They ask, why am I sacrificing so much energy trying to be understood by someone who repeatedly chooses not to understand? That single shift redirects attention from external control to internal stability, creating the foundation for genuine freedom instead of endless emotional survival. One of the greatest misunderstandings about surviving a narcissist is the belief that the answer lies in becoming emotionally stronger than they are. While resilience certainly helps, what truly changes everything is emotional detachment. This does not mean becoming cold, uncaring, or incapable of love. It means reaching the point where your emotional state is no longer controlled by another person's unpredictable behavior. A narcissist often relies on keeping others emotionally invested, whether through affection, criticism, guilt, or confusion. As long as your peace depends on their approval, apology, or affection, they continue to influence your decisions. Emotional detachment begins when you stop expecting the narcissist to become the person you hoped they would be. You no longer wait for the sincere apology that never comes, or the moment of genuine empathy that always seems just out of reach. Instead of measuring your worth by how they treat you, you begin measuring your life by your own values, choices, and emotional health. Their praise becomes less intoxicating, and their criticism loses much of its power because neither determines who you are. This shift is gradual rather than dramatic. Some days you may still feel pulled back into old patterns, questioning yourself or replaying painful conversations. But over time, the emotional hooks weaken because you stop feeding them with constant attention. Your energy begins flowing into friendships, personal growth, meaningful work, and self-respect, instead of endless attempts to decode someone else's behavior. That is when the relationship stops defining your identity, and your future becomes shaped by your own decisions rather than their emotional control. Many people believe that surviving a narcissist requires having the perfect argument or finally finding the right words that will make them see the truth. They rehearse conversations in their minds, gather evidence, and carefully explain their feelings, hoping that clarity will lead to understanding. But this approach often creates even greater frustration because narcissistic behavior is rarely driven by a lack of information. It is driven by a need for control, validation, or maintaining a particular image. When someone is committed to protecting that image at all costs, even the clearest explanation can be dismissed, twisted, or turned against you. This is why the healthiest survivors stop trying to convince and start creating boundaries. A boundary is not a demand that another person change. It is a decision about what you will and will not accept in your own life. Instead of saying, "You have to stop speaking to me this way," a boundary sounds more like, "If the conversation becomes disrespectful, I will end it." The focus shifts from controlling another person's behavior to controlling your own response. At first, boundaries can feel uncomfortable because they often trigger resistance. A narcissist may accuse you of being selfish, dramatic, or unreasonable simply because you are no longer playing the role they expect. They may test your limits repeatedly, hoping inconsistency will bring you back into familiar patterns. The people who truly survive are not the ones with the sharpest comebacks, but those who quietly enforce their boundaries with consistency, even when doing so feels difficult. Because every respected boundary strengthens self-trust and weakens the cycle of manipulation. One of the most overlooked realities of surviving a narcissistic relationship is that recovery is not only psychological, it is physical. Long-term exposure to manipulation, unpredictability, criticism, and emotional volatility places the nervous system under constant strain. Over time, your body begins to adapt to an environment where it expects conflict at any moment. You may find yourself overanalyzing text messages, feeling anxious when your phone rings, or becoming tense simply because someone raises their voice. These reactions are not signs of weakness. They are signs that your body has learned to associate relationships with danger rather than safety. This constant state of alertness can make it difficult to think clearly. When your nervous system is focused on survival, your mind naturally becomes preoccupied with preventing the next emotional injury. You may second-guess your decisions, struggle to concentrate, or feel exhausted even after a full night's sleep. Many survivors mistakenly believe they are losing confidence or becoming incapable, when in reality, their brain has been operating under prolonged stress for far too long. Healing begins when your body repeatedly experiences safety instead of chaos. Consistent routines, supportive relationships, adequate rest, physical movement, and moments of genuine calm gradually teach your nervous system that not every interaction carries a hidden threat. As this happens, your thinking becomes clearer, your emotions become more balanced, and your confidence starts returning naturally. Instead of reacting automatically to every perceived danger, you gain the ability to pause, evaluate situations objectively, and choose responses that reflect your values rather than the fear that manipulation once conditioned into your daily life. If this conversation is helping you see your situation differently, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. These discussions are designed to help you recognize unhealthy patterns, rebuild confidence, and move toward healthier relationships. Your support also helps this information reach people who may desperately need it today. One of the deepest traps in a narcissistic relationship is the belief that if you can just explain yourself clearly enough, the other person will finally understand your intentions. You replay conversations, choose your words carefully, provide examples, and try to show your honesty, believing that misunderstanding is the real problem. But with a narcissist, the issue is often not a lack of understanding. They may understand exactly what you mean and still distort your words because doing so protects their sense of control or allows them to avoid responsibility. The more energy you invest in proving your sincerity, the more emotionally drained you become. This creates a painful cycle. Every accusation feels like an invitation to defend yourself, and every false narrative feels impossible to ignore. Before long, you spend more time explaining who you are than actually living as that person. Your attention shifts from pursuing your goals and enjoying meaningful relationships to constantly managing someone else's perception of you. That is a battle with no clear finish, because the standard for being understood keeps moving. The people who eventually break free realize that being misunderstood by someone committed to misunderstanding them is not a personal failure. They stop measuring their worth by whether the narcissist agrees with their version of events. Instead, they allow their actions, values, and consistency to speak louder than endless explanations. They recognize that not every accusation deserves a defense, and not every conflict requires participation. By releasing the need to correct every false belief or win every argument, they reclaim the time, emotional energy, and inner stability that had been consumed by an unwinnable struggle. Perhaps the greatest loss in a narcissistic relationship is not time, opportunities, or even the relationship itself. It is the gradual loss of your identity. This rarely happens all at once. It occurs through countless small compromises that seem insignificant in the moment. You stop expressing certain opinions because they lead to arguments. You abandon hobbies because they are mocked or dismissed. You become cautious about what you say, how you dress, who you spend time with, or what brings you joy, all in an effort to avoid conflict. Without realizing it, your life slowly becomes organized around keeping someone else emotionally comfortable, while your own needs disappear into the background. Over time, survival replaces authenticity. Instead of asking yourself what you truly want, you begin asking what will create the least amount of tension. Your decisions become driven by fear of criticism, rejection, or emotional punishment, rather than genuine preference. The person you once recognized in the mirror starts feeling unfamiliar because your energy has been invested in adapting rather than living. Many survivors describe this experience as feeling disconnected from themselves, unsure of what they enjoy or even what they believe anymore. Recovery begins with rebuilding that lost identity, one choice at a time. It is found in small acts of self-trust, such as making decisions without seeking constant approval, reconnecting with supportive people, exploring forgotten interests, and allowing your thoughts and feelings to exist without apology. Each decision based on your own values strengthens the understanding that your life does not have to revolve around someone else's emotional demands. Gradually, confidence returns because it is no longer borrowed from another person's approval, but created through consistent respect for your own voice, your own choices, and your own sense of self. One of the hardest truths to accept after experiencing narcissistic abuse is that hope can become the very thing that keeps you trapped. Not hope in general, but the specific hope that one day the narcissist will suddenly recognize your pain, take responsibility, and become the caring person you always believed they could be. This hope often survives countless disappointments because it is strengthened by occasional moments of kindness, promises to change, or brief periods when the relationship feels peaceful again. Those moments create the impression that lasting change is just around the corner, even when the overall pattern never truly shifts. Acceptance does not mean approving of harmful behavior or pretending the damage never happened. It means seeing the relationship as it actually is, instead of how you wish it could become. It involves recognizing repeated patterns without making excuses for them or convincing yourself that this time will be different simply because the words sound more convincing. Acceptance replaces endless speculation with clarity. Instead of asking, "What if they finally change?" you begin asking, "What has their consistent behavior shown me over time?" That question is grounded in reality rather than possibility. As acceptance grows, emotional energy is no longer spent waiting for a breakthrough that may never come. The need to analyze every conversation, search for hidden meaning, or interpret temporary improvements begins to fade. Decisions become based on observable actions instead of hopeful predictions. This shift allows you to stop organizing your life around someone else's potential and start building it around your own well-being, values, and future, creating space for relationships that are defined by consistency, mutual respect, and emotional safety, rather than uncertainty and repeated disappointment. The one type of person who ultimately survives a narcissist is not the smartest, the most successful, the most attractive, or even the most emotionally resilient. It is the person who becomes emotionally independent. Emotional independence means your sense of worth no longer rises and falls according to another person's approval, criticism, affection, or rejection. A narcissist's influence depends on convincing you that your value is something they can grant or take away. As long as you believe that, your emotions remain tied to their behavior. The moment you stop giving another person that authority, the foundation of their control begins to weaken. If there is one truth to remember from everything we've discussed, it is this: surviving a narcissist is not about becoming harder, colder, or more ruthless. It is about becoming more connected to yourself than you ever were before. The person who truly breaks free is not the one who wins every argument or exposes every lie. It is the one who no longer allows another person's manipulation to define their identity, their peace, or their future. Healing does not happen the day the narcissist changes. Healing begins the day you stop waiting for them to. It begins when your boundaries become stronger than your guilt, when your self-respect becomes louder than your self-doubt, and when your inner voice becomes more trustworthy than the criticism you've carried for far too long. Every small decision to choose peace over chaos, truth over illusion, and self-worth over approval is a step away from survival mode and toward genuine freedom. Remember, you were never meant to spend your life proving your value to someone determined not to see it. Your worth has never depended on another person's ability to recognize it. The moment you understand that, you reclaim something no narcissist can ever truly take from you: your identity, your confidence, and your ability to build relationships rooted in respect instead of fear. If this message resonated with you, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need to hear these words today. Leave a comment below with the word "free" to remind yourself that your future will no longer be written by manipulation, but by the choices you make from this moment forward.